We are continuing with a discussion on intercultural negotiation. We're going to talk about some pointers, some things to keep in mind culturally, and these components of the negotiation process. Having spoken previously about the steps in the process and how we can make a bad impression and halt the negotiation, let's talk about some of the more granular items right now. So, so the components of international or intercultural negotiation. In cross-cultural negotiation, there are certain things that we absolutely must take into account. And these are things that you must decide in that preparation time. You are going to need to decide how to handle these items. So first of all, the players and the situation. So remember we talked about what level of in the hierarchy in the organization should be at the table, what country you should be negotiating in, and what is the situation. So getting a really good grasp on that will help frame your cross-cultural negotiation. Second, be aware that there are certain cultural things that are going to play into the success or failure of that cross-cultural negotiation. So, number one, be aware that you could be going through culture shock, or the other party could be going through cultural shock. Regardless, being in a different culture is stressful and is tiring. And so it is much easier to allow cultural noise to interfere in your ability to negotiate. So understanding that anything that interferes or distracts you can hinder that negotiation process. Even practicing how to bring yourself back. When I teach incoming freshmen some study skills and things that help them to get rid of all of those distractions, I talk about putting a simple item. It could be a pen, it could be a sticky note, it could be something simple. I like the sticky note. In fact, I always have sticky notes nearby. So it could be as simple as drawing a star or an X on a sticky note and putting it in front of you. Something that is unobtrusive and that the other parties are not going to be really distracted by. If I cannot have a colorful piece of paper, it literally could be an X on my notepad. And that becomes my come back and focus point. And so I'm looking around the room. Anytime there's something that's distracting, I would take a pen and actually touch that X. Come back. I mean, you're literally just putting your pen, pausing, putting your pen on that. Try it when you're studying. It is a good habit to develop. It is a good study habit. It's a good, get rid of all the noise and distraction, focus back on that one thing. By the way, though, that is one of the focus strategies that we teach children who have ADD or ADHD to help them focus. And I learned from a grade school teacher that she would put a stuffed animal or a bobblehead or, something. In fact, she would allow a child to bring something from home that they would put on their desk. And it wasn't for them to touch it. It was for them to focus on. So I found that very, very interesting. And then I read about the X or having a pen that you touch something periodically to bring you back in. And it's brilliant. It works really well. Anyway, so cultural noise is something that you need to deal with. Then the patterns in a national culture. Educate yourself as much as possible on what those are ahead of time. Then we've talked about power and authority in the past, but this is worthy of bringing up again. So, how alliances are made, who is involved. I know I keep harping on the same thing again. That's because Americans make a lot of mistakes in those areas. So the authority and the power that the people have in the room, you should be matching that with the people that you're negotiating with. Another one is perception. So the meaning that people prescribe to the environment that they're in is very important. If people are coming to negotiate with you, you want to put them in the best room in your business. That boardroom, that really nice room. You may want to arrange a room for that occasion, okay? And learn ahead of time what are the important things. Hi, Tofu. I have someone playing with my feet. She is very patient. She sits under my desk for hours on end waiting for me to finish, so I'll play with her. Where was I? So perception. If they're coming to you, learn about their hospitality and offer those types of things. Is it appropriate to have snacks? Is it appropriate to have juices, water, soda? What is it that they expect? What are the comforts in the room that they expect in that negotiation? And learn about their culture and offer that. It will go miles in helping you to make a good first impression and to help the negotiation along. Then if language is a challenge, who are the interpreters and translators? Are you using someone from their company? Are you bringing someone along? Are you having both? So with interpreters and translators, you may want, having a translator or an interpreter is going to slow the process down. But if people are not fluent in the language that you are dealing in, even if you aren't or they aren't, having that cultural helper is going to really help the negotiation. However, you need to have someone who is at the correct business level. You don't want to come across as having brought in someone who doesn't have the appropriate education level, okay? I've talked about women as international negotiators and the challenges there. You really need to be careful with that. And women, you especially need to be aware of colors. Your book talks about an American woman, but businesswoman who went to Japan to negotiate, and it was Valentine's, so she wore red, not understanding that red is what a bride wears, and that it was very inappropriate, and it was viewed as an insult. So this is a very, very sensitive area, which is why I've brought it up so many times. The environment. So are you negotiating in your own office? If you don't have an appropriate office, are you renting a place? Or are you going there and are you respecting seating charts and all of that. So you really, really need to be aware of those. And then building relationships and figuring out if conflict arises, how serious and how bad is it, and how do you fix those situations. Your book has some diagrams for seating arrangements that could be of interest to you as well. Then let's move to the next step. Slide. So these are some stereotypes that affect intercultural negotiations. And this is a comparison of the US person's views and a possible foreigner's views of a US person. I'm just glancing real quickly in your book. This does not indicate who the other culture would be, so it's generic, okay? So the US person's views are informal, friendly, and casual. The foreigner could view that as undisciplined, too personal, or familiar. The US person may view the everybody at the table as kind of egalitarian, everybody's the same. And the foreigner could view this as insensitive to status. The US negotiator could be direct and kind of aggressive, and the other culture could view you as blunt, rude, or oppressive. The US person wants to be efficient, and the other guest or the foreigner could view it as being obsessed with time or being opportunistic. Goals and achievement oriented from the US point could be viewed as promise more than they can deliver. We may be profit oriented, and that could be viewed as materialistic. Resourceful and ingenious could be viewed as work oriented and the deal being more important than the relationship and the people. An individualistic and progressive approach could be viewed as self-absorbed or equating the new with best. Dynamic, find identity in work could be viewed as driven, and enthusiastic, preferring a hard sell, could be viewed as being deceptive or fearsome. So understanding the viewpoints of other cultures is going to be crucial to the success of the negotiation. So bringing all of that back to a few closing points, you need to be aware of negotiating styles of different cultures, the importance of protocol, and group versus individual orientation. These are kind of like your three bedrock setup, preparation, so that the two parties will be able to negotiate well together. And finally, this was a video. Guys, I'm not showing the videos because they're not showing up well when I have the recording, but you can look this up. And just so you see what
Need a professional website? I created one for our startup using Wix. Let me show you how I did.
Okay, skip the ad. So this is cross-cultural and business negotiation between America and Japan. And I thought this was a very nice explanation. So this is a group of students who did a presentation, and they do a beginning presentation in silence. And this is the American guy, and he's meeting two Japanese women, And these are students, and so they go through the scenario, you can watch it, and then they sit down and explain what happened and where they went wrong. So anyway, take a look at that. The sound is not very good on this, but it gives you a really good perspective on understanding two cultures. So this brings us to the end of intercultural negotiation, and our final section coming up next is talking about laws affecting business and travel. So talk to you soon.